Much for being here. We appreciate it.
All right, mics are hot.
There we
Yeah,
go.
there they are.
Here we are.
All right.
Perfect.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Welcome to City Hall. Good afternoon. Thank you for investing in us so deeply over the past 7 weeks. We are so grateful to be a part of this community now. Thank you for walking through these weeks with us, holding our hands, showing us what everything that y'all see being a part of Prospect. We are so excited to present back to you what we've learned and just exhibit our final Prospect proposal. So here it is. I'll pass it off to Vince for the table of contents.
Thank you, Will. So what we want to highlight here is that this presentation really is just an overview of what we've been talking about. And we have a 30-page kind of overview that we're going to be releasing in a week to the city. So this is really just a brief overview. We're going to talk about the project as a whole, go into more detail about downtown Prospect, talk about what we've been doing here, some of our surveys and interviews and who we've met. And then we're going to share some proposals with you guys. But really, this is just a very brief overview, sharing how we've spent the last couple weeks with you guys. So I'm going to turn it over to Isabel to talk a little bit about why we're here.
Yeah, exactly. So we want to tell you a little bit about the Morehead-Cain Scholarship because it's what brought us to Prospect this summer. And so the Morehead-Cain Scholarship was the first merit scholarship in the United States, and it recruits students from across the U.S. and across the world and brings them to Chapel Hill. Not only does it select students based off of academics, but also their leadership qualities, moral force of character, and physical vigor. The overall goal of Morehead-Cain is to identify and develop leaders for the future, and it gives us a great supportive community, not only at Chapel Hill, but after we graduate with the Alumni Network. And that's really why we're here this summer, is because we got connected with Mayor Doug Barnsley, because he was also a Morehead-Cain scholar. My favorite part about Morehead-Cain has to be the unique summer experiences. Last summer, we were doing our outdoor leadership summer. So Will and I were whitewater rafting the Colorado River. Chloe and Vince were in the Teton Mountains, and Annabella was in the Alaskan glaciers. Next summer, we're doing our Global Perspective Summer, and so that's where we travel entirely abroadly, researching something of our choosing. And then lastly, before our senior year, we have our professional experience, and that's when we get some time and experience in the workforce doing an internship. Now I'm going to pass it off to Will to tell you a little bit about this Morehead-Cain Summer.
Yeah, a little bit more about this summer. Morehead-Cain calls this summer the Civic Collaboration Summer. And so while the group of us are here, there are 18 other teams across the United States and Canada doing similar civic engagement problems. The point of the Civic Collaboration Summer is to investigate community challenges and to propose real solutions. So while we're in Prospect, we are investigating challenges that are real to you. They are real to people, and they have real impacts. And so through this experience, we're able to learn about different situations, about different dilemmas. And the dilemma that we have faced here and the question that we have tried to answer is, how might Prospect establish a master planning framework that guides the city's growth towards long-term livability and intentional urban design? So now I'll pass it off to Chloe to talk more about downtown Prospect.
I'm going to take that one.
Annabella, excuse me.
We decided to focus in on the downtown Prospect, and while everybody here is very well informed about the plan, we want to give just one standard set of information that we're all working from today. So the proposed downtown Prospect takes place on the 30-acre head property alongside US 42 and Timber Ridge Drive. About a year ago, West Scott developers purchased the parcel, and since then they've been working with Mayor Farnsley and a team of consultants to help influence what the development will look like. According to Mayor Farnsley, the land was going to be developed anyway, so why not help shape that development to really serve the community with what they want, what they need, and what they envision Prospect becoming in the next 100 years. And so in the proposed plan that has been developed by Jeff Speck and Jim Brainerd, the former mayor of Carmel, Indiana, who redeveloped Carmel, there is a few blocks of walkable retail and commercial space. There are intentional green spaces, mixed use housing, and small houses and apartments, as well as hidden parking garages and a few other amenities. we are really focusing on the undecided civic space, which is in red on the plan, and that's a space that's been designated for some sort of civic use that Isabella is going to go into more detail about.
Education, recreation, or government. And so it's also important to understand why we should dedicate so much time and community input to the civic space, and so why should we focus on it? First of all, it's what makes people stay, not just education, recreation, or government. And so it's also important to understand why we should dedicate.
Technical difficulties, everybody.
There we go. I'll get back into it. Okay, so first of all, why we should focus on it is what makes people stay in the downtown. The shops, offices, and housing already draws people to the downtown and gives them a reason to come, but the civic space is what makes them stay and brings them together once they're there. The civic space has the potential to distinguish downtown from a pass-through to a real community. Second, downtown becomes a community rather than just a collection of buildings. Civic spaces have the potential to be the anchor for community life, local identity, and civic participation. Third, it just creates a welcoming downtown. Rather than a business that's situated for a single use and a narrow audience, a civic space is dynamic and draws people from across the whole community. Lastly, it's the hardest decision to undo. An unsuccessful tenant can be replaced, but a poorly researched and planned civic space sits empty and underused and drains the vitality from the space around it. So therefore, dedicating this time and energy is how Prospect ensures its downtown becomes a real community that welcomes its citizens. Now I'm going to pass it off to Chloe.
Yeah, so whenever we sort of came about our project, we really didn't know where to narrow in on. And so we came in interviewing a huge amount of residents here in Prospect, really just aiming to listen to what they wanted regarding Prospect's development as a whole before we really honed in on that civic space. We had talked to residents, officials, local leaders, experts, and other just any people who are really going to have a stake in what downtown Prospect means. We're not coming in from a place where we live in Prospect and we're not experts in urban planning. So we really wanted to hear and let local input guide our path here. And we started really broad, asking about like what Prospect needs, what kind of development makes sense here in this area, and how do people feel about these concepts that we kept reading about and hearing about from experts. And then this project just would naturally shift as time passed. So we started hearing about connection, safety, preserving the really unique character of Prospect as it's sort of a rural blend with the convenience of Louisville, and then as well as just a stronger civic center. And this is what led us to focus on the civic space in the master plan, especially because it sits right between two really special spaces that are going to already be anchors to the community. And to back this up, we also sent out a survey to HOAs, and that was to help us reach not only just a broader swath of the population, but also to get a more like narrowed down focus and have what we were hearing in interviews backed up on paper. And this just once again confirmed that the top thing we were hearing about was really safety, community connection, and preserving Prospect's character. These are all things that really mattered, not only in interviews, but to the people we sent out the survey to. And this also gave us more examples of what we could use these civic spaces for, including programming like farmers markets, event centers, concerts and theater performances, local gathering spaces, and the importance of local businesses. And our main takeaway just from hearing from all these people was that people are asking not just for development, but like Mayor Farnsley said, we should contribute to what development is going to happen, and that's going to maintain the tenets of safety, familiar Prospect character that is community driven. And then as we looked at the four options, we also wanted to integrate it with the two things that the major architects had included, which are an amphitheater and a green space main square in the center of downtown Prospect. So I'm going to run through these really quick. Our amphitheater is something really similar to the concept in Norton Commons, which we had visited really within our first week here, and it really stood out as a center of civic life. That the audience isn't exclusive to any members of the population, and the programming is something really unique. And obviously Prospect has the really incredible concert series over in Little Hunting Creek Park, but we think that having a bigger space for this could be very helpful and target not only the people who are living in downtown, but in the greater Prospect area. And this could also just be more inclusive to speaker series, holiday events, wellness programming, celebrations of all sorts. This is right next to the main square, which is really similar to the one in Carmel, which we're going to talk a lot about in this presentation because we had gone to visit. but it is more like a city central gathering space in the outdoors. It's obviously not going to be exclusive to certain residents. There's a really unique walking path included in the master plan. That's something we hear a lot about, is the lack of walkability in Prospect. It's going to be open to farmers and holiday markets, outdoor dining and recreation, festivals and community celebrations, and really just a connecting force for downtown housing, businesses, and civic life. And that was something that we really kept in mind, is how we can integrate these two civic spaces into the unused space, which I think we're going to go ahead and start talking about. Our 4 recommendations.
Yeah, so we're really excited to get into our ideas and share some of those ideas with you, but we want to make it very clear that these are just our ideas, our proposals for you guys. We're not making recommendations. We're giving you guys the information to make the decisions for yourself. And we're very excited to see what Prospect City government does, what the public community in Prospect does with this decision, but we're here to kind of give you guys some of the tools to help make that decision. So I'm going to turn it over to Annabella to talk about one of our first ideas.
Yeah. So I'm going to start by introducing the idea of a black box theater. I know it's been talked about a lot in this community, and so I want to give a little bit more information about what a black box theater actually means. A black box theater is a flexible theater venue that can host a variety of productions. It's characterized by its black walls and black floors, as well as no designated audience section. All of the seating can be rearranged for every single production, and it often creates a really intimate atmosphere where the audience really feels immersed in whatever is being put on. They can use the space for concerts, for shows, plays, speaker series, for really so many different types of performances. Typically, a black box resides in a larger facility. It's a building that's comprised of the actual theater, a lobby space, bathrooms, rehearsal space, storage space, administrative rooms. And in Prospect, we envision this to be a 15 to 20,000 foot space that would host 150 to 200 people in the actual theater. It would be right across from the amphitheater and green space, and so it would work in conjunction excellently with those spaces, providing an indoor venue for the outdoor programming that would often take place in those spaces. We envision this space as one that can be run by a local company, but one that can also be rented out, and there can be a rotation of companies that move through it. It can also be used by the government to host community meetings. It can be used by various community groups, HOAs, if they want to host a speaker, as just a really flexible space for the entire community, which really aligns with the goals of the downtown to be mixed use and really attract a variety of people from around the community with a variety of interests. We want to talk a little bit more about the demand for this space. In our survey, which really aligned with our interviews, 63.9% of people said they would attend theater performances in the proposed downtown. 80.6% said they would attend concerts. 44.4% said they would attend community meetings, and 44.4% said that it would attend educational programming like speaker series. And so from this data, it really shows that if there was a black box theater that hosted this variety of events, there would be people there to really reap the benefits, including yourselves. I'm going to pass it over to Bence now to talk a little bit more about some comparable spaces.
So for each of our ideas, we really wanted to give some examples of places where this has been done and how it's working in those places. So one of those is the Studio Theater in Carmel, Indiana, which many of us visited just a short time ago. And that theater is part of a huge complex with all kinds of art installations. But the Black Box Theater itself is an $8 to $10 million theater that seats up to 200 people. Another theater that we wanted to look at was in Louisville. That's the Victor Joy Theater. And that's really supported by an actors league in Louisville. And that's what we found when we've been researching these theaters, is how important it is to have an arts group that's very committed to the space, both in managing those performances and putting on those performances themselves. And so that theater is about a $12 million theater, including kind of some of the parking and extra amenities. And we've used these spaces and a few other comparable spaces for each to give financial projections for each of the ideas. And what we really want to look at when we're looking at these ideas is three things. I'm going to give you guys three things. The first is a total cost, what it would look like to make revenue at this location, and then kind of a key takeaway to think about when we're thinking about each of these ideas. And for the Black Box Theater, that total cost would be just over $4 million. And that's one of the cheaper options of the ideas that we're going to present today. In terms of revenue, you would need about 71% occupancy to break even. And so while this is the cheapest option, it would probably be very difficult to hit that break-even point. Talking with local black box theaters in the area, they maintain about a 50% rate. But obviously that ticket price is very flexible, and that 71% is at a $20 ticket price average. And so while the community could definitely work on promoting and working with this theater to bring those numbers up, we do think that it would be difficult for this to be a self-sustaining building and would definitely need some city support. So I'm going to turn it over to Will to talk a little bit about our next idea.
Yeah, so our second idea to put in the civic space downtown is what we're calling a cultural center. And I'm super excited to explain what a cultural center could look like in Prospect, because it is a truly versatile space that can fill a lot of gaps and that would be simply fun to visit. So the cultural center, it takes inspiration from a few different places, one of them being a 3-story building in Kentucky that has different aspects of culture and history on each floor. So what it could look like in Prospect is maybe on the first floor, you have a cafe, a public-private partnership where you're going to generate revenue. And then you have a gift shop where you can sell Prospect-themed merchandise or keychains, things like that, fun little things. But you could also have a permanent art gallery. You could have a permanent history exhibit where people can come and learn about Prospect and arts. You could also have a community gallery where you have art from local artists, maybe even high school students or university students. Also included in this space, we like the idea of having a large meeting space. One of the comparable spaces we'll show you has what they call a ballroom on the 3rd floor, which is just a large multi-use area where you can have all sorts of different meetings. You could have Rotary Club, you could have city council meetings, you could have any kind of meeting that would require a large room, and all of this could be included in this cultural center. So looking at some comparable spaces, one of them is the Art Center of the Bluegrass. It's located in Danville, Kentucky. Like I mentioned earlier, it's a 3-floor setup. On the first floor, they have the cafe and an art exhibit. But on the 2nd floor, they also have different rooms where they can do workshops. You can do art programming. You can do visual art. You could have painting classes, graphic design classes, different programming to involve kids as well as adults. You could have summer camp for the kids at a space like this. And then, like I mentioned earlier, you could have meetings on the 3rd floor in the ballroom. And then another comparable space is from a place in my hometown, Montgomery, Alabama, the Montgomery Museum of Fine Arts. The reason I love to talk about the Montgomery Museum of Fine Arts is because they have great programming that's attractive to all ages. One example of this is Art After 5. Now, Art After 5 would be a great idea for another date night like the Schulhafers are having right now. Art After 5 in Montgomery is an adults-only 21-plus event where you get to tour the museum and drink cocktails. Maybe here y'all would have bourbon, but imagine that. They also have drop-in workshops where you can go to a workshop and learn about how to create different art. They have Meet Me where you come in and you learn about a specific piece of art. You do a 20 or 30-minute exhibition. Now, we think Prospect would benefit from a space like this because you clearly appreciate the art. I mean, look around the room and see the art on the wall, see how we see people come in every day to look at the art. They come in our office and view the art. We know that it's important to this community. So having a space like this could truly just impact all age groups of the community. Now, briefly, I want to mention a third example of a comparable space. That's the Malden Cultural Center in Malden, South Carolina. The reason I want to point this space out is because they do really well seamlessly integrating the outdoor space with the indoor space. A few things that Malden does is a blues and jazz festival in their outdoor amphitheater. They do a barbecue cook-off outside. They do a Malden Christmas, and they have a public art trail. And all of these events incorporate the indoor and the outdoor spaces. So the Cultural Center could host these events, but they could use the outdoor spaces in the area. And that's why I'm excited about a cultural center, because I think it would be a lot of fun. So I'm going to pass it off to Ben to talk about what that would cost.
So a building like that would be around $6 million. But what's very interesting about this is it would only take 150 ballroom events to break even on that property every year. And what's even more interesting is that would be subsidized as well by the cafe and gift shop revenue. So of the options, this is the one that is the most likely to not only make significant revenue, but possibly turn a profit for the city. I'm going to pass it over to Isabel to talk a little bit about our next idea.
Yeah, so our third idea is a new city hall in downtown Prospect. This city hall would be in the heart of downtown, and it would carry out all of the functions City Hall does today, but located where residents already gather. So now let's get into exactly what would be inside this city hall. And most importantly, it would have larger chamber and meeting rooms as the city grows. These meeting rooms could be rentable on weekends and evenings. Whenever they're not used for city business, they could be used for community gatherings, meetings, and other events. And residents could also pay a lower rate than non-residents, keeping the space accessible to local clubs and organizations while generating revenue for the city. Because it sits in the middle of the downtown, the entrance could also function as a city welcome center that could promote Prospect, highlight upcoming events, showcase the city's history, and have the central community bulletin that a lot of our residents have asked for. Lastly, the City Hall could also have a police substation within it. This way, there is permanent 24-hour police presence in downtown Prospect that could also monitor after-hours rentals if needed. And so now let's look at what could possibly happen with the old City Hall. Right now, this building functions as the city chambers, offices, the police, and the library. But one idea we had was making it solely function as the police station. Residents have expressed concern that a busier downtown could bring more crime. The police force is expected to grow to meet the needs of a larger Prospect, and converting the full building gives it room to do so. The library that is now here also has two paths. It could either be renovated as planned and remain here, or it could relocate to the new City Hall building where greater foot traffic would let more residents enjoy it. And so what is the demand for this new City Hall? There is a lot of demand for just a larger city hall in general. The current city hall is overcrowded, and we've attended multiple meetings where people already have to stand, and this would only worsen with a growing city. One survey respondent specifically asked for a larger city hall, chambers, meeting rooms, police, and library, and this would make it all happen. Second, safety is a top priority for residents, and we've learned this in our survey when we asked what 3 goals matter the most to residents, and 61% of respondents chose keeping the area safe. Residents voiced both a love for Prospect safety and a concern about rising crime with rising populations. Converting the old building directly enables police expansion, and the substation allows for a permanent police presence downtown. Residents have also asked for a better access to central meeting and gathering spaces in our interviews and surveys, and this would make this happen as well. And lastly, residents just want a better welcome to Prospect. A downtown city hall could serve as the front door to the city. Residents suggested amenities like greeting card shops or the community bulletin for posting announcements, and this could all be housed here. So downtown City Hall really gives Prospect the civic space, meeting rooms, expanded police, and also the welcome center that residents want. So now I'm going to pass it off to Bence to talk about some other comparable city halls.
So the 2 buildings that we're going to talk about are both located in Carmel, Indiana. And so the first one would be the City Hall in Carmel, Indiana. And what we really liked about this City Hall when we were talking with Mayor Brainerd there was how well it was used by the community. After hours, the City Hall was open and meeting rooms were open for different local organizations to have spaces to meet and gather together, which is something that we've been looking to create for Prospect. That's a very large city hall, though, and it would be valued at about $10 million, which is significantly more than we would need for a city the size of Prospect. The second building we're going to look at is the Village of West Clay Meeting House in Carmel, Indiana. And that one we use to look at what it looks like to rent meeting space and what sizes of meeting space people enjoy. When we look at the finances for a city hall in Prospect, we'd be looking at about a $5 million building. And the break-even rate is almost absurd. 1,200 meetings per year are needed to break even on that. And so clearly this building would be more of a civic center and a civic space that would be supported by the city than a place that we're looking to generate revenue from. Our last idea, I'm going to pass it over to Will Harden.
Yeah, I'm excited to present the idea of a wellness center to you because wellness and health is so important to populations of all age groups. A wellness center is attractive to the younger population as well as the older population because it's important to preserve a healthy population. So a few ideas of what a wellness center could look like are member accessible facilities. Inside, you could have a weight training equipment. You could have a balance and mobility zone, sauna and recovery room. You could have a multi-purpose studio, which wouldn't necessarily just have to be used for fitness. Now, a room that's larger, like the one on the bottom left of the screen, could be used for yoga. It could be used for fitness classes, but it could also be used, again, as a mixed-use space. What we want to really emphasize here is all these spaces are versatile, and this one is no different. The reason this is important is because it fosters a health-minded community, and we know that's important to the people of Prospect. We've heard that a few years ago there was a Snap Fitness Center across the road, and we heard that it was popular, but it's no longer here, and there aren't many gyms in the area, we've heard. So that's why we think this could be a good idea in Prospect to have another place where people can work out, where they can exercise. Some ideas that the space would go along with are a professional staff that offers personal training or personal or therapy, PT. They could also have fitness or nutrition workshops. They could teach you just about different parts of fitness. You could have, again, group yoga. A fun idea that one of the people we talked to had was you could even do yoga on the green space across the street. That's how you integrate the green space with a place like this, is you exercise outside. Who'd have thought? But again, this doesn't just have to be a wellness center. It can be another space for the community to gather, to meet, to just visit with one another. And we think it could be popular here. So I'll pass it back to Ben for some comparable spaces.
We're going to talk about two spaces that we've seen that are very popular with the communities they're in. The first one is in Carmel, Indiana, yet again. And then the second is in Shelbyville, Kentucky. And both of these spaces are very large, much larger than we would need for Prospect. But something else we want to highlight is the location of these places. If you look at the screen, you see they're in large, more rural areas. And so we've definitely had to adapt our model of what a recreation center would be like to fit it in an urban center and really incorporate it with the urban space. As Will was saying, using the green space around it, using the areas around it to enhance that building, not to limit it. When we're looking at the finances of that space, that would be the most expensive building at almost $12 million. But what's really exciting is the break-even rate would be around 4,000 members. And as we watch Prospect grow, it'd be very exciting to see the city invest in a space like that and allow it to grow with the city. And I think that could be something that would really attract people and bring people into downtown on a very regular basis. I'm going to pass it over to Annabella to talk about some of the next steps.
Yeah, thank you so much for listening to all of our ideas. Firstly, something that's really important to us is that this project doesn't stay in this summer. And so we want to give kind of a few notes of encouragement and a few updates about what will happen after we leave. First, we'd really encourage the city and the community to absorb this new information into their project and into their conversations. These are just ideas, like we said, but take them into meetings with you, take them into the next phases of the project. We've done a lot of research, but it all comes from the community. It all comes from you. It all comes from the conversations that we've had this summer. And so this is really just an amalgamation of your ideas and your thoughts. And so take it with you. We'd also really encourage you to keep soliciting feedback from people that don't visit City Hall very often and don't visit the community spaces you have very often. The more we've dug, the more we found. Sending out the survey was very helpful because we were able to reach people that wouldn't walk up to Mayor Farnsley and ask what's happening with the project. And so it helped us really identify a few new avenues to go down. So keep finding ways to reach those parts of Prospect that don't come out a lot. We also wanted to acknowledge that a lot of our ideas for the civic space focus around, they're, yes, multi-use spaces, but they focus around one main use for the building: a wellness center, a theater, a city hall, a cultural center. But there's also a world in which you could combine some of these ideas into one building. You could have one big multi-use building that has a lot of these components integrated into it. And so these are really just preliminary ideas, mix and match as you will. And then we want to give you a few updates about the next phase of the project. We will be leaving with you a longer written report that we'll send over to the city, and they can distribute it as they wish to anybody who wants to read it. It's like 35, 40 pages, so it's a bit of a long one. And then we're also going to send over a flyer, 1 to 2 pages, with kind of just a summary of what we've done and what we've learned. And you're welcome to forward that to anybody you know who just wants a brief snapshot into what we've done. We are also passing over a lot of our research to Russell, who's over in the back. He's waving. Russell is going to work in the city for the next year and really carry on some of this research and continue to solicit community input. So yeah, that's all I have.
Our time in Prospect has definitely been shaped by the people we've met here, and we are so incredibly grateful for all of the people we've met. I'd like to echo what Will said earlier. We're so grateful to all of you for coming and watching our presentation this afternoon. We're so grateful to everyone who came to our interviews. There's a few people who took their interviews above and beyond. Linda Wardell, we'd like to thank her for the park tour, Jim Brainerd for his tour of Carmel, Patrick Piuma for his tour of his microforest. We'd like to thank Bob and Elaine Jacob and Peggy and Chuck Patterson for hosting us in their homes. We'd like to thank the Rotary Club for hosting us and also inviting us to speak to them. They've been gracious hosts to us throughout our entire stay in Prospect. We'd like to thank the city staff for letting us crash their workspace every day. We'd like to thank City Council. We'd like to apologize to City Council as well. Dawn Gibson, I think I sit in your chair every day during work. I really enjoy it. It's a great chair, good outlet access. We'd really like to thank Dr. Bernie Stranecki, who came to us and he asked, wouldn't it be interesting if you guys had a mentor on this process? And he really walked through this whole process with us. He met with us every week. And we're so grateful to him. He's such an active person in the Prospect community and in the broader community. He does really great work. Play Ball Puerto Rico is a really great organization of his that he started. We'd also like to thank Mayor Doug Farnsley. Doug has been such a gracious host to us throughout this entire process. He's always been so welcoming to us and so kind to us. Every day we're so excited to come into the office and say good morning to Doug and get to work. He's been a wonderful mentor to us throughout the process and has truly provided us with the information we needed to really get the ball rolling and kind of do our own work. He's had a very hands-off approach, but also been so helpful when we've asked for his help. He's an incredibly informed mayor, and he does such great work for the city. And above all, he's someone who truly cares about the city of Prospect and really wants what's best for Prospect. And so we've described Prospect this way from the beginning, but Prospect really is a community that cares. And we've been so grateful to meet all of you guys, and we've been so grateful for the impact you've had on each and every one of us. And it's going to be very sad to leave this place. So thank you all so much for that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary. Now we'd like to open it up for any questions you might have about anything we've done or any of the spaces we've talked about.
Or any comments or anything at all. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a simple question on the math. The dollars you quoted for the buildings, what was the payoff years? Each of those had you said there's a use occupancy, but across that time, how long did it pay off each building?
So those numbers were to break even on the expenses, not as much to pay off. The paying off the building would come from the TIF financing program that Prospect will be engaging in. Yes, sir.
Push and measure survey. Can you describe the number of households and the number of people that are residents of Prospect and catchment area here? I know we've got relationship with overcome. I know just enough to be dangerous. But your response rate and were you surprised at the? I think I saw the number 36. Is that households or was that individuals?
Yeah, so we had 36 respondents, and they came from households around the Prospect area. We wanted to open the survey up to anybody who would frequently utilize a downtown Prospect, so that includes people both within the city of Prospect, but also the frequent passerbyers on US 42. So we opened it up to people who do live in Goshen or who live in other parts of Prospect, just not in the city, because those are people that use these stores and would use the downtown as much as anybody who lives in city proper. And the downtown space would be serving those communities as well. And so I believe the breakdown was about half of the people who actually lived in city proper, and then half who lived in scattered communities, either right across US 42 or in Goshen. I don't think anybody from Norton Commons filled out the survey, but that was an option.
Yeah, so we recorded each place where people lived, and it ended up being about 80% Prospect. So it was a lot of Prospect, but also those surrounding areas. And we also hope that this survey can kind of live on and keep gathering information from more residents. So that's something that Russell could also work on. It's 37 respondents right now.
And how many potential respondents were there?
Gosh.
I think we sent it out to probably a couple hundred.
Mhm. We sent it to probably our 40 contacts and then asked them to keep sending it on. And so,
Convenience survey in terms of who's focused, just for the broadcast.
no, sir. Mm-mm. But we hope that's something that could happen after we leave and keep being built on.
I was going to fill that survey.
Okay. Thank you. We appreciate it. Good luck to you.
Handle this question very well.
Yeah, any ideas y'all want to add on, or what did y'all enjoy about any of them? Well, thank you.
I'll just comment that you told me you were gonna have 4 proposals, and I just had no idea that they would each be so compelling. I was sitting here thinking, I
Really?
want all 4 ideas.
Yeah.
And so maybe the idea of the building meeting several of those purposes.
Right.
But it was just so well done. I'm very impressed, very appreciative, because it really will help us.
We're so glad.
Good question.
Yes, sir.
What have you guys learned in this process?
No, that's
What did you know about it?
that's a great question. We actually
Your elevator speak.
oh gosh. I think I'll have to talk a little bit longer than the elevator. That's actually a question that Dr. Sternecki asks us every week after we meet with him. And so we've had quite a bit of time to reflect on what we've learned. And it's honestly so much. A lot of very specific information about Prospect and Louisville and the surrounding areas, about zoning, annexation, and things like that. But really what I've taken away and what's the goal of this time is how to work with a team, how to collaborate, how to really think about complex questions and answer them in a way that's actually helpful to people, because real lives are not necessarily at stake, but real lives will be impacted by what we do here. And so I think I've definitely taken away how to really problem solve and work on like we've talked about, real life situations.
Yeah, I agree with Will. That's a big part of it. And just teamwork. We're living with each other every single day, working with each other. And so that's just a really great lesson. And to add on to that, for me, it was really just how important making new connections with new people are. I can look at this room and say, y'all are all really good new friends for me. And I feel like that helped us gathering information so much more. So when you're doing research, making sure you're connecting with the people at the same time is really important.
I agree with everything that's been said, but I also think that I've been amazed with the intention of the city in like correcting past maybe errors, and they didn't take a part in the way that Prospect has developed in the past. And I think that it's something that can be applied to everything, is just how thoughtfully you plan for the future, and every decision you make matters.
Well, I had the opportunity to talk with y'all pretty early when you came, and I remember talking about how skilled are you on planning. Or what did he go like? No, it's all new territory, and you really gotten into it. Really, it's very, well, it's thrilling to see what you've done.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So it's interesting that the group from last year said the same thing when they were departing, that as much as they learned about us, the issues that they were dealing with, it was them learning how to work together as a group. So I think your mentors at UNC should be very proud of you.
They're right there.
Thank you, Julie. Thank Montez. They're listening from North Carolina. Well, we've also learned that the hot brown is a must-have. Thank you, Montez, for that.
Don asked a great question, what you learned, and we got 3 answers, but we still got 2 to go. So
I think for me, I learned just the importance of city government and how much of an impact a good city government can have on a city. And watching the amount of effort that this whole community has put into this plan and all of the developments that are going on and all of the different events that go on in Prospect is very inspiring. It's inspiring to see people who are so dedicated to their community, and I've been very impressed by that.
I agree with everything that's been said, but I think something that's really resonated with me this summer is how important listening is. I've always appreciated listening and having conversations with people, but when you really just, I think we were given this advice at our training before the summer, is to outweight the person that you're interviewing, and I think that's really stuck with me, is just being quiet for a few extra seconds and you get a lot more out of somebody. It's often things that they would pause before they would say or hesitate before saying. And I've heard a lot of really incredible stories this summer. I've really appreciated speaking with almost everybody in this room, and a lot of your stories will stay with me. And so just the importance of listening, I think.
Real quick, you just nailed it. I'm gonna say this, I've been able to watch them the whole time. 3 things that young people need when they come to work, be it law enforcement, be able to become an attorney, no matter what you're gonna do. Confidence in what you're doing, which you guys have all displayed very well. Communication skills. You just nailed number 1. Listening skills are above all that, because when you listen to people like you guys have, it improves your communication, improves your confidence, and you listen great because you have a great presentation. Good job.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Tony.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have a question, and to get back into the weeds a little bit.
No, go
Yeah.
ahead.
But I do want to compliment you all. This has been an exciting time that you've been here, and I love your ideas. I think the whole idea of a community that comes together is walkable, and that leads me to my question. Walkable, was there any consideration for connecting the neighborhoods that are on this side of 42 with the downtown?
Yes.
So that's something we've addressed. We didn't address it during our final presentation here, but we addressed it a little bit in our final report that'll come out next week. We've talked about other alternative steps to take from other input that we've heard. And so we've talked about connectivity, which includes the roundabouts that'll come in 2028 and 2030. So hopefully that will be a part in slowing traffic down, making the area safer to walk. But then we've also mentioned that it'll be important to connect things like downtown to Kroger and to Publix and to all of the other buildings in the area. And as Prospect continues to grow in the future, connecting other areas that might be annexed and that might grow the city physically.
And there's a great traffic study that you can find on the Prospect website that really gives some of those details about how the new traffic plan for that road will make it a little bit more walkable and easier, certainly, to cross the street.
And we've talked with a few people who have done a lot of the research on connectivity in the area and what that could look like. And there are plans out there, I think, deep in archives about biking trails, about walking trails. And I think if certain community members were really passionate about it, they could definitely take it up, not only on a Prospect City level, but on a metro level. And I think that's where the most change could happen, is really taking it up with Metro, because they control the connectivity in the broader area. And I think that's what will make a real impact.
Of course.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
I'm going to guess that there's some people who would like to visit with you after we end this.
We hope so.
Love to.
Yeah, we'll be around.
Happy to.
Definitely.
Well,
Well,
thank
thank
Thank you
everyone so
guys
much.
for coming.
Thank
for having
you.
us.
And just like that.
Thank you all in Chapel Hill.